this general region here is the voice box, more or less, or the larynx. Together. We have this little guy here. I can't remember the name of that. So I think we'll come back to that. All right. So as we're entering the larynx here, you can see the cat's actual vocal cords are these guys right here. Cats aren't capable of making super complicated sounds or anything, so it has fairly small, but these are the true vocal cords right here on the inner layer there. So that's, as sound is being pulled across that, these are what actually vibrate. Just that little flexible part on the end there. Alright, so now as food is going through here, this is kind of not the best example because these are the two pipes, and one of them is completely destroyed here, which is the one we care about now. This is the esophagus, and this is the trachea, so people screw that up. But
is there going to be practical on this exam?
Yeah, so we'll have at least one, probably a couple, potentially, depends. We've had it up to like 6 cats on the exam, so obviously there are quite a few things to label, and you don't want to cram them all into just one cat, so so anyway, this is the esophagus, which you can see is ripped open here. The trachea's got these really distinct cartilaginous rings on it, so if you feel that, you can feel that it's it's much more rigid. Why does it have to be rigid? If you're thinking about it, you're pulling air through it, so if you're pulling air through it, like it could collapse. You don't want it to collapse basically, otherwise then you won't be able to breathe. So it has a structure. You want it to be like a pipe. Whereas your esophagus, well, it's also like a pipe. You're pushing the food through it. This is smooth muscle right here, and so it's actually squeezing your food down through for you. So you don't have to worry about that collapsing in the same way. Another interesting thing, if you guys remember the slides on histology that had hyaline cartilage and pseudostratified columnar epithelium, those were trachea slides, and they were kind of a U-shape. If you look here, you can see that these are these cartilaginous rings, and if you look, the cartilage doesn't actually completely connect on the other side. There's a gap here, which is exactly why we see that U-shaped structure rather than a complete circle, because the trachea doesn't form one complete circle. Right, a bit of a digression there, sorry. So somewhere, so we basically go now, if we follow we'll stick our probe into the actual esophagus and go down. And if you look, we're kind of by, this is the heart right here, so now we're behind the heart. And so somewhere in here, we're going to, you basically go all the way through to the stomach.
That's the stomach right there?
Yeah, this also kind of hacked up thing. So if we peel this open, you can see some chewed up cat food in there.
Gross.
Pretty nasty. And actually, on the inside, that there should be, so like right in here, you can see there's a kind of a really rough textured surface of the stomach, and that's called rugae.
Called what?
Rugae?
Rugae?
Yeah. Alright. And then, so this is the all stomach. So this is, unfortunately, it's fairly well chopped up. But if you guys remember, there's a sphincter between the esophagus and the stomach. Do you guys remember the name of that one? That's your cardiac sphincter, or your gastroesophageal.
Because it's right by the heart?
So yeah, we don't get to it exactly, but it's somewhere, it would be, it's hard to tell, but this is basically where the stomach is coming out here.
Okay.
And so it's going to be somewhere in there.
So that's something we would have to label at the practical as well?
It depends on on the particular cat. We may be able to find it on some of these. Alright, so from the stomach, Now, the weird thing about the stomach is that we usually kind of represent it as just sort of like a bag, but on these cats especially, it really curves up and around. So actually leaving the stomach through the pyloric sphincter, that's going to be actually up here kind of. So if you, this is again pretty packed up, but the stomach goes kind of up and around like this. And that pyloric sphincter is going to be right here.
So it's the first kind of bend.
Well, if you look, it's where basically this stomach bag turns into tubing, which is our small intestine. So from our pyloric sphincter, we go into the duodenum. You can see there's this this membrane all through here, which is called mesentery, that's sort of holding all that together. And if you look through there, there are lots of blood vessels in there. So that's basically where you're having basically nutrients pulled into like your bloodstream when you move around, etc. Right, so from the duodenum, eventually we go into the jejunum, which we can't really differentiate, but that's the middle region. So this is all small intestine until, let's see if I can find, yes. So right here, this last region here would be the ileum. And from there, we go through an ileocecal valve. This guy right here is the cecum, this little side pouch, more or less. And so on a human or a lot of other organisms, you'd have an appendix trailing off of this thing right here, this cecum. So now at this point we're in the colon. Humans have basically 3 branches of the colon, an ascending, transverse, and descending limb of the colon. Cats just have one, mostly, it takes one kind of turn, but it's mostly straight. And at this point you go out and through. And so if we look, we can try to find, so in this case, this is all the uterus of the cat. So that's a big female here, so it's taking up a lot of space. You guys don't have to necessarily, I don't know, do they have to know the uterus, uterine horns, stuff like that? No, but you want to be aware of it because it's otherwise obstructing your view of the stuff you do need to know. So if you look, this is basically colon turning into rectum, where it's going out through here, and then to the anus, which would be, is it ripped up? The anus shouldn't be, so that would be, yeah, right here. So we could go theoretically back up and through. Remember, rectum, then anus. So rectum is the actual, is more of the
that's the involuntary.
What's
you
that?
Said.
So there's sphincters there, and so the sphincters are both basically at this level. Some more down here, but there's a smooth muscle sphincter that is involuntary, and then the skeletal muscle, which I believe would be that one that's actually in the muscle that's immediately surrounding there. But anyway, so rectum begins basically as it's sort of narrowing, whereas the anus is the actual opening.
Okay.
Alright.
Will do.
Oh, yeah, this guy, I forgot to mention, this is the epiglottis. It's a little cartilaginous thing, and the whole purpose of that, basically, if you look, this was their, these are our vocal cords. The purpose of the epiglottis is to close down, basically, to allow food to go into, let's see if I can find the opening, allow food to go into the esophagus, it's right here. And so as you're swallowing,
it closes that.
The food actually hits this, and that funnels it into the esophagus, as opposed to, you know, into your voice box and your larynx. So that's the purpose of that epiglottis there.
Cool.
Right.
What's that thing?
Which thing?
That, not the, which one's the uterus and which one, like those two structures right there.
So yeah, this big guy
the
right
whole
here
thing is
all
okay.
Uterus. And instead of like fallopian tubes, just have uterine horns. And actually,
they act similar.
So, but you would have the kittens actually.
Okay, that's what. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
on a really big one. You'll have these big lumps in here, which will be little baby kittens in there.
Wow.
Okay. But this one, I don't think.
Where's the bladder?
The bladder is right here.
Oh, okay. So it's like right in front of it.
So it's like, so yeah, basically you go bladder, uterus, colon, and then rectum, basically.
Okay. Where's the kidney? Is it like up higher?
Yeah, I was about to
Kidneys
ask
are going
that.
to be
right there.
quite a bit up higher, yeah. So here and
Right there. Okay.
So
Makes
other
sense.
just general stuff. So we went through here's your colon, large intestine, getting into the small intestine. This is the cecum. You have your ileocecal valve here.
Or the
So this would be the ileum of the small intestine, then going into the jejunum, and the duodenum. As you reach the stomach, which I'm showing